Hey, welcome back to All-Wheel Drive. I wanted to take some time and talk a little bit more about the Mercedes GLC350e that I recently reviewed, and just kind of take you through a few more of the details that sort of help you understand how it really works for this particular vehicle. Some of the reviews I've seen on plug-in electric hybrids, they talk about things like how when you're in electric mode, you really don't get to use it as effectively or as aggressively as you like. In this vehicle, the range on it is not super. It doesn't really go all that far. I get a total of 15 miles on electric only. And that's good enough to take my son to school for a whole week every day if all I'm doing is taking him to school and back home, because we live relatively close to his school. It's also good if I'm driving to work. I can get to work and then back home and still have some left over to take him to school the next day, and then I'll need to charge it once I get to work that day. The beauty of it is that when I'm in gasoline mode, it has the ability to regenerate power. So as I'm driving to work, and I've noticed this more when I'm driving to work, my commute to work and home, I regain, if using the combustion engine, I will regain roughly about 3 miles of electric range in just doing that. Obviously with the gas prices, you know, being more mindful of using gasoline if you have a plug-in hybrid, electric hybrid, is of a big concern, because gas prices are a little ridiculous right now if you have not noticed. So the beauty of this is if I'm using gasoline, I can continue to recharge the battery for the electric motors as I'm driving it. And then not having to fill the car back up, because I can charge at work. The infrastructures are getting better to where you see these more often. The problem is everybody is now starting to take notice and, you know, start to transition over to electric. So finding an open electric charger when you're at work becomes a problem. So that's going to be something I think will continue to occur, and it'll become more exacerbated as people buy more electric vehicles. Where the hell will you charge your car if not at home? And if you don't have an electric charger at home, that's going to be a problem, because that's really where you're going to get the best bang for your buck on that. But as I was saying, I can drive it to work. If I have a chance to charge it at work, I can do so, or wait till I get home and charge it again. And it typically takes me about 2 hours to charge this thing up completely on the 220 volt. And that was something that I was fortunate enough to have already in my house, and all I had to do was buy a different charging pack. The car comes with a 110, which with the range that I get of in this car, charging on a 110 will take it roughly 8 hours to be able to go 15 miles. And that's just nonsense. So that helps out a lot in terms of getting charged and being able to use that charge when I'm driving the car. So I want to kind of show you how a little bit of this works. So when you're driving along, you'll notice that the bar on the right down here under the tachometer has power and charge. And that's where you notice usage and regeneration of your electric motors. The green on the right indicates that you are gaining charge. So when you're braking or allowing the car to engine brake, without even applying the brake, it will activate this and cause the car to start charging the batteries. Now, conversely, if you have it in electric mode, you'll see that on the left, the power indicator tells you how much power you're summoning up. So similar to an RPM gauge, this tells you how much you're feeding to the wheels. The unique thing here is that this power gauge, you look at the bars there that tell you how far into acceleration you're using. Once you exceed that last bar there on the right, the car will shift out of electric mode and go into combustion mode, because now you're asking for more power than the electric motors are capable of giving. You can regulate how much electric power you're using. And one of the things I had heard with regards to one of the larger full-size SUV vehicles that's a plug-in electric hybrid, and I believe it was the Jeep. And what I'd heard on that was that if you put it in full electric mode and then you go to accelerate, it's not going to accelerate very spiritedly, let's just say. I decided to take this vehicle through that kind of a experiment myself to see, okay, what's it like in here? If you learn to modulate it, you can get it to do it pretty spiritedly, and it was kind of cool. The other thing is that in this vehicle, with nothing but electric power, you can get up to 70, 71 miles per hour before the gasoline engine kicks in. So obviously 15 miles is not a long distance, but there have been situations where I'm going to say South County, and it's going to be about 80 miles. So I'm using roughly 15 miles of electric to get partial way, and then I'm using my fuel for the rest of the way. So my fuel consumption is reduced. Then as I get to my destination and start driving in the city, put it completely in sport mode where the electric engine will not kick back in, it'll start to regenerate. The other thing, that when you're driving, let's say on the freeways, when you take your foot off the accelerator, let's say you're running into traffic, the car will shut the engine off. The engine will become now a generator because you're braking with the engine, and then you'll start to regain a little bit of power. Not substantial enough that you're going to see a difference in your gauge or your meter of electric, but I do like that it does have the ability to shut the engine off, allow the batteries to recharge, even when you're driving on freeways. I did mention that because this is a 19, there are other vehicles that are out now that have way better range. Some are in the excess of 25 to 30 mile pure electric range. Most of the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles don't give you a ton of range because that's just not how they're designed. They're not a full electric. They're still a combustion engine primarily, with the addition and the support of an electric variant that gives you just a bit more economy and allows you to have the flexibility to use electric should you feel you need it. The other thing I want to talk a little bit more about was the proximity sensors on it. So this has front and rear cameras, gives you 360 view of everything around you. And I wanted to show you the graph for the sensors. And a lot of vehicles, they will show you on the camera where the proximity alert is coming from. And in this one, depending on what gear you're in, like if you're in reverse, it for sure does that. When you're driving or you're coming to park somewhere, it uses these little bar graphs to show you how close you are to something, and then you'll hear the little alert letting you know you're too close. And then if you look at the dash, you will then see that it's showing you what side of the car, left or right, and how close before it becomes a little bit more severe you're getting to the object. And it's progressive. So as you get closer, if you'll notice right here above the S, you see that yellow light start to kick in as you get closer to something. Now on both sides. So you've got left and right. I'm closer on the left right now than I am on the right to whatever the object is. And as I get closer, they both light up accordingly. And you get the red to say, hey, mofo, you just either hit it or stop now, or you're about to hit it. And the object in question here is just a bunch of bushes. But that's the sensitivity that it gives you, so that you know you're very close to something and that you should be alerted to it. At slow speeds, and when I'm in a parking situation or a slow driving situation, the camera will kick on. So the camera over here on the monitor is showing me, it's showing me rear as well, but because it's 360, but it's also showing me the 360 in this side, where that proximity that I just showed you on the dash also exists here. This becomes yellow and then red. So it's pretty intuitive. It works really well. I do like that quite a bit. And that's really good for a lot of drivers who have difficulty gauging distance and how close they are. These vehicles these days are so much bigger, and the way you sit in them sometimes compromises how much you can see around or above or in front of the vehicle. So it really helps a lot. You'll see a lot of people's cars and they got little dings in their bumpers, not because they're bad drivers, but sometimes you just can't tell how close you really are or aren't to something. So that is a really good feature in any car. So it's good to see it working really well when you're approaching foliage. So one of the downsides I experienced while driving in a parking lot after I depleted my electric range I kept it in the comfort or eco mode. And as you're going slow and as you come to a stop, it cuts off and you're in electric, just to conserve your gasoline. But I noticed that as I kind of drove through the parking lot, when I was moving, the engine would kick on, and then if I took my foot off the accelerator to go over like a speed bump, for instance, the engine would shut off. So it was this cycling back and forth. As soon as I put my foot on, the engine kicked on. As soon as I took my foot off, the engine kicked off. It got a little annoying, just because there was that inconsistency of in and out. And I think if you don't have any range and you're using the gasoline engine, if you're in that mode, it seems like there should be some kind of a time lapse that needs to happen before it shifts back and forth between the two. So the app is pretty straightforward. It gives you all the basic information, like status of charge. It lets you know how much charge it currently has. It also tells you what the range is based on charge and based on fuel within the vehicle, and how far you can actually go, combined, independent. When it's actually plugged in and actively charging, it shows active charging diagram, so you can see the little dial rolling and how much charge you currently have at that time. It'll also tell you how long it will take until your charge is actually complete. Aside from that, you have all the other features: status of the car's locked doors and windows, like the tailgate, those sorts of things. That's all pretty standard as far as apps go. The unfortunate thing is that when it's unlocked, you get an alert saying it's unlocked, but it won't let you lock from the app. You got to go get your key. So I thought that was kind of, just dumb, but whatever. You have the ability to control your air conditioning. If you're leaving somewhere soon and you want to set the air to come on so the car's not hot when you get in, you can do that. You can set it for a time, or you can set it for immediate. You also have your basics like tire pressure, system updates. You can get over the air. You also have maintenance, scheduling, and all that stuff, and the status of where your car stands from a service perspective. So all that's really good. So this is cruise control engaged in EV mode at 70 miles per hour on the freeway. You can see the bar there indicating how much acceleration is being used to maintain that speed. So I want to test just to see how fast it will go on cruise control in EV mode. I'm just going to go incrementally. So we're able to get to 75 miles per hour on just EV